Shalom, when the staff souls, but giving no praise to Yahweh, Bashem, Yahweh, Bashem, Karkadash. Double honors to the apostles of great millstone, and honors to brothers doing the work of the Most High in truth and in sincerity. Yahweh's real name, of whom the world ignorantly calls God, Jehovah, Yahweh. His real name is Yahweh. The Son's true name is Yahweh Shai, and we pray for Yahweh, Bah Hashem, Yahweh Shai, meaning in, meaning that, and Sham, meaning names, Yahweh, and the name of Yahweh Shai. Real quick, I just wanted to get into this. I was just reasoning with a brother earlier on, and one of the things that came to mind, was this precept, right? It's Matthew 10:16. Behold, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. Be therefore wise as serpents and harmless as doves. But I'd never, really gone into this, thing of doves, right? And the symbolism, what it represented. So I chucked it in to the robot. I said, what are the characteristics of the animals listed in this verse, right? Consider what they represented in the time this was written, right? So we see wise as serpents, harmless as doves, right? Animals as first century symbols, right? So we see sheep, right? And sheep and lamb, right, are things that are used to represent whom the Lord is dealing with, right? Israel. Let me get a precept on that real quick, right? This is John 21:16, right? It says, he said, so I'll start from 15. So when they had dined, right, Yahushua saith unto Simon Peter, Simon, son of Jonas, lovest thou me more than these? Right? He said unto him, Yea, Lord, thou knowest that I love thee. He saith unto him, Feed my lambs. Right? Verse 16, he says, he saith to him again the second time, Simon, son of Jonas, lovest thou me? He saith unto him, Yea, Lord, thou knowest that I love thee. He saith unto him, Feed my sheep. He saith unto him the third time, Simon, son of Jonas, lovest thou me? Peter was grieved because he said unto him the third time, Lovest thou me? And he said unto him, Lord, thou knowest all things, thou knowest that I love thee. Yahushua said unto him, Feed my sheep. Right? We are, Israel, is referred to as sheep, as lambs, right? All throughout the scriptures, right? This is just being one example. So we carry on, right? So sheep, what are they known for, right? It says vulnerable, non-aggressive, dependent on a shepherd, right? And as a nation, we have need of a shepherd, right? I just had the precept escape me. I'll get this one instead. Right, but there's another precept that I was looking for. Lord will come back. Right, so this is John 10:7. It says, Then said Yahushua unto them, Verily, verily, I say unto you, I am the door of the sheep. All that ever come before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not hear them. The door, by me, if any man enter, he shall be saved, and shall go in and out and find pasture. The thief cometh not but for to steal and to kill and to destroy. Right? I am come that they might have life, and that they might have it more abundantly. The good shepherd giveth his life for the sheep. Right? So we as a nation we need to be protected. We need to be guided. Right? Because the scriptures also says that we are as a worm, right? This is Isaiah 41:14, right? It says, Fear not, thou worm Jacob, and ye men of Israel. I will save thee, just like I will help thee, right? Saith the Lord Yahweh, and thy Redeemer, the Holy One of Israel. So Israel here is being described as a defenseless creature, right? And I was at the camp last week when I was setting up the tripod and stuff. And as I'm looking down, I just see, a worm. It's, oh snap, need to make sure, not step on it. It was, just out, and it's just like, that is the nature of an animal, like a worm, right? Just defenseless, right? Needs protection, needs a covering, okay? And our covering comes from the Lord, right? Right now we're in this, in this spiritual fight, right? In this spiritual battle, right? And we need the covering, we need the armor of these scriptures, right? It's one I was gonna say for later, but now is as good a time as any. So Ephesians 6:10. Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of the Most High, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places, right? It says, wherefore take unto you the whole arm of the Most High, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all to stand, right? So, our protection in this evil fight that we're in is by way of the scriptures, right? By way of Yahweh Hashem Yahushai ultimately, okay? Putting on the whole armor, we will be presented with situations, right? And instead of, going off of our own hearts, off of our own mind, right, thinking about the best way to navigate by what? By way of the scriptures, okay? But let's carry on here, right? So back on sheep, it says economically valuable but defenseless animals, right? You think about that word economy, right? That goes into house management, right? So as a nation, we're valuable, right? But we're defenseless. When you think about just the stewardship of this earth, right? Right now we're in this heart of stone, but when the Lord gives us the heart of flesh, right? We're gonna be able to fulfill, that position of being, profitable for the earth, right? So Sirach 10:4, the power of the earth is in the hand of the Lord, and in due time he will set over it one that is profitable, right? So we're gonna get into that, that the Lord is gonna allow us to tap into that, spirit of perfection, to tap into, the position that the Lord ultimately has prepared for us. Okay. Goes on to say what they represented then: ordinary people, especially middle-sized people. So I'm not, talking about the Israelites, right? Innocence and obedience, right? Exposure to danger without protection, right? And we, as a nation, for the most part, we've been a prey, right? We've been a spoil. Okay. It says, meaning in the verse, Yahushua is honest. His followers will be dominant or safe, will not be dominant or safe by worldly standards. They are sent out exposed, relying on the Most High rather than force. Okay, and that's the position that we're, that we're in, right now. Right? We are completely exposed, right? This is Zephaniah 3:8. Says, therefore wait ye upon me, saith Yahweh, right, until the day that I rise up to the prey. Right, so right now, we're the prey, and these heathen nations are the predators, right? But there's gonna come a point when Yahweh Shai is gonna correct that for us, right? Yahweh Shai is gonna become the predator, and these nations the prey, right? But all we can do is wait, because same way you may watch like a a nature documentary, right? Whether it may be like baby birds, right? And then when you see them, right, they're just in they're just cowering and hiding, right? Any baby animal mostly, but you just see them cowering and hiding, right, whilst their parents go out and hunt, and then they're just waiting for their parents to come back for their protection. Okay, and once again, that's epitomizes us as a nation, right? We've got all of these animals in the savannah that are trying to eat us or whatever, right? Birds of prey trying to pluck us up and eat us, right? And then we just can just hide, right, for protection, right now, right? We'll in fact blow the dust off of this one, right now we can hide in the what do you call it, in the name of the Lord. This is Proverbs 18:10. The name of Yahweh is a strong tower, the righteous runneth into it and is safe. Okay, so that's what we're looking for, right? That's where we go for our protection, right? Trusting in Yahweh Hashem Yahushai. Okay, so let's carry on with Zephaniah 3:8. Therefore wait ye upon me, saith Yahweh, until the day that I rise up to the prey. For my determination is to gather the nations, that I may assemble the kingdoms, to pour upon them mine indignation, even all my fierce anger, for all the earth shall be devoured with the fire of my jealousy. Okay, so we carry on to over here. So wolves, on the other hand, says predators of sheep, right? Cunning, aggressive, destructive, right? What they represented then, right? Violent or exploitative people, false leaders, corrupt authorities, persecutors, right? And we are coming into these, into the time of persecution. And it says false leaders there, and it's like the people that come up against us a lot are our own, our so-called own people. Right, this is Micah 3. Do I want this one? I'm gonna start from top. It says, and I said, right, Micah 3 from the top. It says, and I said, hear, I pray you, O heads of Jacob, and you prince of Israel. Right, is it not for you to know judgment, who hate the good and love evil, who pluck off the skin from off them, and their flesh from off their bones? Right, it says, who also eat the flesh of my people and flay their skin, and they break their bones and chop them into pieces, as for the pot, and as flesh with the cauldron. Right, and this is going into these false leaders that are taking off the covering from the sheep. Okay, they're taking off the covering from the sheep, right? And here it is. You may have what's the word? You may have someone that's starting to get it, but then these different leaders are coming with these doctrines that are basically putting that individual back into a dead state. Okay, that on the point of them false leaders, right? But we understand that those in both instances, that was the will of the Most High, the person that gets taken and the person that's doing the taking. Okay, right? And then also scriptures talk about how the Lord is gonna have it whereby this is Matthew but let me read the one in Luke. Right, so Luke 21 and 12. But before all these, they shall lay their hands on you and persecute you, delivering you up to thy synagogues, right, and into prisons, being brought before kings and rulers for my name's sake. Okay, so that's what you're going to see. You're going to see, these different individuals coming up against us, right? And you can feel it in the air that, that the Lord is going to start, allowing, certain things to happen. But ultimately, one of the things we understand is these things are necessary for our salvation. We must needs walk this path, right, to get into the kingdom, right? So, so then we go into serpents, right? What they were known for: stealth, caution, right, and survival instinct, right? So, for instance, the thing that came to mind when I read stealth, right? What does it say? Right, this is where is it? Yeah, so this is Matthew 6 and 3, right? It says, but when thou doest alms, let not thy left hand know what thy right hand doeth, right? Now this is going into alms, but one of the when you hear Akim speak, right, you may hear that statement just used as in the frame of like, let not your left hand know what your right hand doeth, right? Basically, certain things, be Clark Kent, basically, right? Once it also quoting the precept, right, from which this lesson is built off of, right, being sheep, right, in the midst of wolves, wise as serpents, right, and harmless as doves, right, more so the point, right? But be a part of that wisdom is like certain, in the world, Clark Kent, right, and then in outside, so in the truth, Camp Day, do what we have to do, right? But in the world, Clark Kent. Okay, then also you also have something similar, right, in Micah, I believe, which basically says, keep thy mouth, right, from her that let me just get it. This is Micah 7 and 5. Trust ye not in the friends, and put ye not confidence in the guide. Keep the doors of thy mouth from her that lieth in thy bosom, right? So, the woman don't need to know everything, right? That's part of that, prudence, right? Yeah. So I thought there was a precept that will come to mind. But carry on, right? So it says stealth, caution, and survival instinct. Okay, it's ability to avoid danger rather than confront it head on, right? So actually, it is that. Right? It says I mean, it looks at both. Proverbs 22:3 and Proverbs 27:12 say the same thing, right? Proverbs 27:12 says, "A prudent man foreseeth the evil and hideth himself, but the simple pass on and are punished." Okay, so being prudent, keeps an eye on things, right? You're trying to see, okay, this could happen, then that could happen, and this could happen, then that could happen, right? Constantly calculating. Okay, this is what they represented then: shrewdness and discernment, right? And strategic intelligence, not moral evil by default, right? Importantly, in ancient thought, wisdom was practical skill for navigating danger, right? Not just abstract knowledge. Well, we read the scriptures, wisdom is referred to as a feminine spirit, right? And as ultimately a snare unto those that can't handle the wisdom. Okay, but to those that accept wisdom, right, wisdom is a good thing. So carrying on, right, it says, meaning of the verse, followers are not called to be reckless or naive. They must read situations carefully, anticipate threats, and act with foresight, right? And even in the spirit, it's just different conversations that Akim have been having. This thing about just being very grateful for this truth, right? As we witness, whether it's family or whatever, right, in the world, just moving without wisdom, right, being reckless, almost getting in in situations that could have ended really badly, okay, because they haven't got wisdom to move, right? For instance, scripture says this as an example, right? This is Ecclesiastes, Sirach 8:1. So strive not with the mighty man, lest I fall into his hands. Okay, so one can start trying to strive with the mighty man, right? Just for pride and ego and this, that, and the other. But guess what? then you die, right? Or something else happens, right? You jack your situation up, right? Prudence is saying, actually, this is a battle that I don't need to fight. Okay, but not everyone has that foresight. So continuing on, it says, they must read situations carefully, anticipate threats, and act with foresight. And then it's, once again, doves, because the other ones, other animals kind of have a good understanding of what they are, but didn't know what, a dove specifically, right? So it's doves, what they were known for, right? Gentleness, lack of aggression, right? Used in temple sacrifices by the poor, right? That kind of made me think, because, part of this thing of ours, it's a sacrifice. No, not part of it. It is a sacrifice, right? This is just reasonable service. Romans 12:1. Beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of the Most High, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable unto the Most High, which is your reasonable service, right? So this is a reasonable service, right? But it's a sacrifice, So I didn't, because you think about the different times that the dove is mentioned in scriptures, and it's like, this does use a sacrifice, but it's actually just putting it all in one, right? Especially in the context of this verse, right? Why is the serpents harmless as doves, right? It's like, some of us, for instance, are gonna have to, as an example, right, basically give our life for this, right? Is it 20:4? Yeah, 20:4, right? It says, Revelation 20:4, and I saw thrones, and they that sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. And I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Yahushua, and for the word of the Most High, and which had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither had received his mark upon their foreheads or in their hands. And they lived and reigned with Mashiach 1,000 years. So you see that, and them that were beheaded for the witness of Yahushua, right? And that is a real thing that we have to prepare ourselves for, right? Prepare for the, I forget what the saying is. I have no idea how I messed that up, right? I always get the two mixed up. It's 3 and 10, isn't it? No. Oh, sorry, it was there. Sluck it. Revelation 2 and 10. Fear none of those things which thou shalt suffer. Behold, the devil shall cast some of you into prison, right, that ye may be tried, and ye shall have tribulation 10 days. Basically referring to a set period of time. To be thou faithful unto death, and I'll give thee a crown of life. Okay, and that's part of that. Basically be willing to, be a sacrifice, for the Lord. So let's go into this as well, right? So it says what they represented then: purity, peace, innocence, right? Faithfulness and simplicity, right? So it says, meaning in the verse, wisdom must not turn into manipulation or cruelty. Moral integrity and peaceful intent must remain intact, right? The tension Yahushua creates, the power of the saying lies in the combination, not in the individual traits, right? So it's a sheep, a vulnerable position, wolves, a hostile environment, and we are in a hostile environment, right? We read Ephesians 6, right? We come up against, principalities and this, that, and the other, right? People in high places, okay? This is a very hostile environment for us, okay? Which is why, friends, you read the precepts and you come across things like, this isn't our rest, right? Serpents, right? It represents strategic intelligence, right? Does moral purity, right? It says, basically, then you have this idea of, the two extremes, right? Basically, we got to be one, right? It says pure innocence without wisdom, easily destroyed, and then pure cunning without innocence become predatory, right? The calling is to survive and remain faithful without becoming what threatens you, right? So, I was just, reading through how it's kind of gone into certain of the points and the representation of, the different animals, thought could build a lesson of it. And all, hopefully it was edifying. So yeah, until next time, we say shalom.